Hey guys, before we get into today's video, I just want to say thank you for everyone who has been watching this series so far. Again, the purpose of this BBQ Talk series is really to answer your questions, to debunk some barbecue myths that have been created over the years, and just to hopefully elevate our game in this barbecue thing. So I just want to thank you guys again so much for all the positivity and all the feedback that I've been getting. Continue to ask those questions in the comment section down below, and I'll do my best to get to as many questions as I possibly can. But again, just want to say thank you, and we'll get into another episode of Barbecue Talk. So on today's episode of Barbecue Talk, what we're going to be discussing is the blocking log. Question is, do you necessarily need the blocking log? And the answer is no. If you're starting off at if you're having like a really large cook and you happen to you're filling your smoker full of briskets and you're a little bit worried that the briskets that are up front are a little bit too close, then yeah, I would say throwing a blocking log in front of there would be beneficial, but it's, again, not necessary. The one trick that I would say though, if you are going to use a blocking log, is in your pile of wood that you got, try to pick the biggest, stumpiest, blockiest, heaviest one that you can find, because the thing that you don't want to happen, and I've seen this happen on more occasions than I would like, is that blocking log will catch on fire. And then when that thing catches on fire, now you're not necessarily worried about those briskets that are in front being burnt because of the fire coming from the firebox, but it's because now it's got a log that's caught on fire and sitting right next to one. Usually happens if the logs that you choose are too small or too dry, and so you just really want to be mindful of when you're selecting a piece to put in front of all the stuff, because you don't want that to be the reason why you burn your first row of brisket, ribs, pork shoulder, whatever. The other question you might be wondering is how do I know if it's too far or too close in terms of putting that blocking log? There was in one of my other videos where I was kind of talking through my barbecue cook, or during my brisket cook, and I was talking about different things that I do and how to test certain hot spots and stuff like that inside your smoker. And so I was talking about using your spritz bottle in order to figure out how to determine if a spot in your smoker is too hot. I'll leave a link to that video up in the top corner so you guys can take a look at that. That's one of the things that you want to do too, is sometimes that I get it, sometimes you have a really large cook and you want to put as much as in there as possible, but if it's too hot, then it's probably not best to overload it or to put a blocking log in there. Other thing that you can do to kind of buffer that a little bit is to play around with your fire. So something that I like to do is that if I have a lot of stuff packed inside my smoker and it's a little bit closer to the firebox than I would like, one thing I'll do is I'll just keep that fire really low for the first 3-4 hours or so. The point where you don't want to cold smoke it for that long, but you want to be able to cook it at a really gentle level so that you're just basically waiting for the briskets to shrink. Now once they do, then you can start moving them down, and then you can start maybe putting a blocking log in there so that when you bump up your temps, now you actually have a little more space where you're not worrying about having that blocking log catch on fire. You're not worrying about the front briskets getting with too much heat. Again, another way that you can kind of manage that if you do have a lot cooked in there at one time is to start the fire low, let the meat shrink, and then move it. Then you can bump up the temp so that you're not worried about crisping anything. Other than a blocking log, another thing that some people will do, and it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes you'll see people will take blocking logs in replace of actual briskets themselves in order to kind of regulate that airflow inside your smoker. So for example, let's say you're cooking on a 500 gallon, and usually if you have 12 briskets or so, then you can do 3 rows of 4 or 4 rows of 3, however you want to put it. But let's say on that occasion, you're only doing 11 briskets, and you kind of have this one empty space inside that smoker. Now the other thing you can do is you can kind of rearrange them so that the airflow is a little more regular, but if you do want to keep it a little more consistent, one thing you could do is take that log and replace that spot for a brisket so that you kind of create those same channels of air to circulate all the way through. It's not necessary. Again, guys, like everything that I'm telling you, it's not things that you have to do, but there are little small tricks that you can use to help kind of make things a little bit more, I don't know, make them a little more even, especially again if you're having trouble with certain briskets finishing. That putting that log in there might be able to help kind of regulate that airflow a little bit and help things cook slightly more evenly. That doesn't mean if you're cooking in your backyard and you're only cooking one brisket that you have to put a log next to it. That's not necessary. You can just kind of keep that brisket right in the center, and it'll get all the air circulation from all sides of it. So that's what we're talking about in terms of using that blocking log to help. Whether it's in front of the fire or you're replacing with a brisket, you're just kind of helping things flow a little bit more evenly, as well as kind of using that blocking log in the beginning so it doesn't hit that brisket right away.
Hey, what's going on, guys? So as I was editing this video, I just realized that I forgot to record the outro, so I'm just going to do that right now. So from this video, I hope you guys start to, again, just to remember everything that I'm trying to tell you guys. There are very few things that really significantly change your cook, right? As long as you're able to focus on having good trim, being able to control your fire, and probably the last thing is probably resting and slicing stuff is really important. But other than that, all this kind of stuff about blocking logs, water pans, spritzing, all that kind of stuff really is there just to manage things when they kind of are not as regular, because barbecue is, you're dealing with a lot of variables every single cook, and especially the other variable that you might be jumping into is the amount that you're cooking. At the end of the day, whether you're cooking one brisket, 10 or 20, we still want to be able to have a consistent product. And so these little things like adding blocking logs, replacing briskets and stuff like that in its place with the log is just there in hopes to create a more consistent product as we start to cook more. But again, is it necessary? It's not. Focus on this basics first, and then just kind of keep these little tricks in mind to help you remember, if you run into certain situations, there are different tricks that you can use to, again, create a more consistent product. But with that being said, guys, again, I want to thank you guys so much for watching these videos. So make sure you like, subscribe, share these videos with your friends. I don't think I've said this before, but that bell thing, I guess, that YouTube has where it lets you know when the next videos come up, click on that as well. And just, if you guys, again, if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I'll try to get to them as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.